Slick and Shiny, tongue-in-cheek productions now takes you for another trip to one of the local communities in Westmoreland County, Pennsylvania. This time we look at a place called Torrance, Pennsylvania, because I want to say a few words of introduction here. When we consider the place that is referred to as Torrance, most people think of a state mental hospital that was established there. But that didn't show up there until about 1920 or a bit before. And I want to go back in time to show you the place over a period of time in the 1800s before the state hospital there was ever considered. This will be number one, and then we'll have Torrance number two, in which we take a look at the hospital there. The place first had a name called Liebengood Summit, named for a guy named Henry Liebengood, who settled out there quite early in the 1800s. And as time went on, in the 1830s, the state of Pennsylvania ran their public works system through there, which was a conglomeration of various kind of transportation systems. There was railroad, there was the Portage Railroad, there was canal system. It was the canal system that went through Torrance, or what we came to call Torrance. And then in the 1850s, the Pennsylvania Railroad put the beginnings of their main line through there. In 1852, the Pennsylvania Railroad started to run through Torrance, going the whole way from Philadelphia to Pittsburgh. The place at the time of the railroad was known as Blairsville Intersection because there was a railroad intersection there for a branch line that took off, went into Blairsville, and was then connected to a route going into Pittsburgh. It became known as the Conemaugh Branch. And the place where it connected with the main line was out there at Blairsville Junction, or Blairsville Intersection. At that early time, during the time of the railroad, prior to the state hospital, there was a small community there which had 3 hotels, an opera house, there were stores there, there was a post office since 1854, there was a brickyard, there were quarries, there was a bandstand. It wasn't a large place, but it was significant. And then in the late teens, the state of Pennsylvania decided to build a state hospital out there, and that place took the name of Torrance from the last name of Francis J. Torrance. He was the person in charge of the building committee, which the state of Pennsylvania established to build the hospital out there. Incidentally, he didn't want his name attached to it at all, but it so happened that Torrance's name became the name of the place since around 1820 or so, 1920 or so. Now I want to shut this part of it down, and we go back to look at pictures one by one. This was the train station out there, and what I did was I reworked this a bit. I redrew it and put some color on it. I think it makes things more interesting and understandable. This part over here may be confusing because it's part of what's called a Y, W-Y-E. And that was the track configuration that allowed the intersection with the route through Blairsville and into Pittsburgh. This is mapping from 1857, just about 5 years after the railroad started to run. This is the railroad. This is the main line of the Pennsylvania Railroad. And this is the track configuration called a Y, which allowed the railroad junction to go over through Blairsville. This was Blairsville over here, and then on to Pittsburgh. Interestingly, this map also shows the Conemaugh River and the canal, which was part of the Pennsylvania Public Works. And on that canal, there was a lock house. There was a stop on the canal here. And one time, when Charles Dickens was making his American tour in 1842, he stopped here and stayed overnight at, it was a place called Liebengood's Tavern or House. It was Liebengood. He was a descendant of the original Liebengood who had first settled there. This is a contemporary topo map. You can see the Conemaugh River coming through. A little place called Strangford up here, Pack Saddle over here. Over here is what we're talking about. It's called Blairsville Intersection or Torrance Post Office. This is a bit more recent mapping. This is the railroad coming through. This is the place now called Torrance in 1841. This is the railroad running over through to Blairsville. This was Blairsville here. It's not mapped because this is a Pennsylvania map. You might see things like Cokeville on here. (1867) mapping. I just want to give you a look at Blairsville intersection right here. This was the Y that allowed the intersection to happen. This was the branch that went off to Blairsville, which was right here, and on to Pittsburgh. Matter of fact, this place was also referred to as the branch because the branch line went off there. 1867 mapping of Blairsville intersection that became Torrance. It wasn't a very big place at that point. Contemporary aerial photograph. This is the little town that was over there on the railroad. This is a railroad going by. And this is the state hospital that was established there. This is Blairsville. This over here is the state hospital and the little town of Torrance. This is a quarry that brings up Boss Flynn, a guy from Pittsburgh. He and his partner named Booth and Flynn Construction had quarries out around Torrance. Boss Flynn was the boss of the Republican political machine in Pittsburgh. He wasn't local out at Torrance. He come out there to oversee his quarry. This is a stone crusher up at Pack Saddle. Pack Saddle was another one of the quarries that were out there, 1927. We just give you another aerial shot. This is the hospital. This is the little town with the railroad going by, the main line. And we'll get some look at the buildings in the little town. This is one of the shops. This is was the original post office in Torrance. This was originally the school out there. And at this point, it had been converted into apartments. It had been called the Ogden School because a lady named Ogden, see the sign here, it says Ogden, donated land for it. This is one of the graduating classes, 1935-36 class. These are some of the guys from out there. Petrarca, McKee, Wayne Thomas. Looks like they're in the front of one of their old trucks. These are some of the McKee family who were a prominent group out there. This was a Bible class from 1921 on the Simpson House porch. This was the church. It's called the church because for most of the time out there was only one church, the Methodist Church. For a short period of time there was a Catholic church, but that burnt down. Another one of the old stores in the little town. And the design caboose, which tells us we've gone far enough with Torrance number 1. We'll see you again for Torrance number 2 when we push the button and say so long.